jamming, we jamming. Tell my neighbor come over. He telling me load on music. He telling me that's ain't right. The neighborhood quiet as ever. No problems to sleep at night. I tell him I love me soca. The music hot like a true love. Bring your body, come on out here. Move your body just like you don't care. We jamming it so sweet. Feel the rhythm, feel the heat. Bring your waist from walk to the soca. All our we just jam together. I tell him it's so sweet. Feel the rhythm, feel the heat. Bring your waist from walk to the soca. All our we just jam together. I tell him it's so nice. Change your mind and don't think twice. I tell him it's so nice. He moving the whole crowd, singing soca loud and loud. It's my neighbor, no control. He said he just can't do that. He never hear music, so I tell him
Greetings and salutations, one and all.
someday let's run.
Welcome to the show.
All night, come join and feel the
It's a night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. Welcome to a brand spanking new week right here.
we jamming it so sweet.
It's a night we call Community and Finance Night.
Bring your waist, come walk to the soca. All of we just jam together. I tell him it's so nice. Change your mind and don't think twice. I tell him it's
How you doing?
nice. He moving
Big ups to those tuned in on One Harmony Radio.
loud and loud.
Top of the morning to you guys over there in the UK.
The music pumping big time. Man, woman taking small wine. Oh yeah, we in the street wet. We jamming, enjoying the fest. Something say look in the
I
corner.
want to say big ups to those tuned in on PEMGTV.com.
Yeah, he jamming on a
Those on WGLRO.
moving the
The People Station, home of the Donnie Walker Morning Show. Taking you from the sheets to the streets, from Detroit to Denmark and every point in between.
He moving the whole crowd, singing soca loud and loud.
Big ups to those right here at the home of the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew, kevinstew.com.
We jamming it so sweet.
Glad to have you. Couldn't do it without you.
Bring your waist from walk to the soca. All of we just jam
Y'all have my word, I wouldn't even try.
so sweet. Feel the rhythm, feel the heat. Bring your waist from walk to the soca. All of we just jam together.
How are you doing in these trying times? How are you doing? How are you communicating with your neighbors? I hope you're keeping that relationship strong.
So sweet. Feel the rhythm, feel the heat.
It's important.
Come walk to the soca. All of we just jam together. We jamming it so sweet. Feel the rhythm, feel the heat. Bring your waist, come walk to the soca. All of we just jam together. I tell
In
them
the background, the music of
change your mind and don't think twice.
the one and only Shelly Sweet Shells.
Nice.
The track is called My Neighbor.
Sing it soca loud and loud. Yes, my neighbor, no control. Yes, my neighbor. We jamming.
Have to do a little bit of housekeeping before I get into the show for tonight.
All of we just jam together. I tell him it's so nice. Change your mind and don't think twice. I tell him it's so nice. He moving the whole crowd, singing soca loud and loud. It's my neighbor, no control. The music pumping big time, and woman taking small wine.
I want to say big ups to Pulse Media Group. Thank you for sponsoring the first segment of the show for tonight.
Something say look in the corner. It's
Pulse Media Group and being in a moment is price. Let's get them a call.
he jamming.
754-999-6020. Visit them at paulcmg.com. What can they do for you? Everything you see right here on kevinstew.com and more.
Oh no, he moving the
For your streaming services, they can give you that.
loud and loud.
Creating your website, hosting your website. They can do all that
And it's so sweet. Feel
and more.
the heat.
Tell them you heard about them on the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew.
Just jam
I
together.
want to say thanks to Althea Esu.
Feel the rhythm, feel the
Althea and her healing heavenly hands
soca.
comes to you as a massage therapist if you're in Broad County, North Miami-Dade, South Palm Beach counties.
Jamming,
She has her table, she has her oils.
we jamming it so sweet.
I don't know how you and her are gonna work it out in this time of
Your waist come
social distancing now.
we just jam together.
But call her and
So sweet.
make arrangements for when the social distancing ban is lifted.
All we just jam together.
954-655-9000
Change your mind and don't think twice. I tell him
or email her at fairlater@att.net.
he moving the whole crowd, singing soca loud and loud.
Thanks also to Reggae Global Entertainment.
Yes, my neighbor.
Reggae Global takes care of your booking needs. Your publishing, your trademarks, your business registrations, your legal contracts. Thank you, Reggae Global Entertainment. And to close out the show in our musical therapy, we have GMAT Music Solutions. I want to say thank you to GMAT Music Solutions. GMAT Music Solutions provides sound, stage, light production services, musical equipment, DJs, musicians, singers, bands, you name it, they bring your event to life. So give them a link, tell them you heard about them on the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. Call them at 754-307-GMAC. That takes care of the formalities, most of it.
Bring your waist from walk to the soca. All of we just jam together. I tell them it's so sweet. Feel the race and feel the heat. Bring your waist from walk to the soca. All of we just jam together. Yes, my neighbor. Jamming, jamming. We jamming, it's so sweet. Feel the race and feel the heat. Bring your waist from walk to the soca. All of we just jam together. Jamming it so sweet, feel the feeling. Bring your waist up, walk to the soca. All the we just jam together. I tell them it's so nice. Change your mind and don't think twice. I tell them it's so nice. He moving the whole crowd, sing it so loud and loud. Yes, my neighbor, no control. Yes, my neighbor. We jamming, we jamming.
The track is called My Neighbor. Inviting all the neighbors to come on in. You know, it's a good thing when you can call your neighbors over and hang out and interact. Although right now it's a little bit difficult. You know, social distancing and all. You know, it's a little bit difficult. It's a really neat trick to be hanging out with anybody right now. But right now I have one of my neighbors from. We recently became neighbors. Well, became familiar as neighbors, and I want to thank her for taking the time out to come on and talk with us on the show. We get to peek a little bit into past times and what she has to tell us about is something that has been quite the buzz for a little while now. And without getting too much into it, I want to introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to the person who will be taking over for tonight. It really is her show. And I truly appreciate the time that you're taking out to come and share with us, Joy. I know this isn't easy. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Joie Monfort.
Thank you. I kind of wanted to start around mid-August 1989.
Ooh, history lesson.
Yeah, well, Angela and I had been friends for a while at that point. And we were just kind of getting familiar with who each other was.
Okay.
Now, mind you, she was 12. I had just turned 16. Part of the reason why Angela kind of, I don't want to say clung to me, but kind of became friends with me, is because of an absentee parent. She was from a single-parent household where the mother worked at night a lot.
Yes.
So Angela was home a lot at night by herself. Her sister and her brother would go to their dad's house, and Angela would be left at home alone. And I didn't know in the beginning that she was only 12. She did not carry herself as a 12-year-old. She talked like me, acted like me. I assumed she was around my age. I didn't learn until a little later that she was only 12. But in learning how old she was and the relationship that her and I had, it made sense because, my dad was home at night.
Yeah.
And if my dad wasn't home, my stepmom was home. So she spent a lot of nights with me at my house with my dad and my stepmom. But around mid-August, Angela and I had been hanging out at the softball field, which sat across the street from my house. And we were sitting on the bleachers, and we were talking, and we had gotten one of the older guys to get us, it's just gross, a bottle of the Mad Dog 2020 because we wanted to be cool. And
That's beer, isn't it?
James, no, it's wine. It's
Oh.
that Rutgut wine. It's so
Okay.
bad. But we were sitting there. We were just kind of sipping on it, passing it back and forth. And James and one of his friends came up, and they were talking to us, and they were trying to get us to go back to James's where he was staying at the time, which was right up the street. And we couldn't because where we were sitting, we could see my driveway. And when my dad and my stepmom came in, we had to go in as well.
Okay.
So we couldn't go anywhere that night. And there were just some parts of the conversation started getting a little out of control. So I had grabbed Angela by the hand, and I took her, to the house. And James and his friend followed us, across the softball field and we jumped over the fence because we were trying to the shortest distance between A and B is a straight line. So we just decided to cut through the softball field and over the fence and to the house. And they wouldn't leave. We went inside, we locked the door, and they wouldn't leave. They were standing in my driveway. And the way my driveway was set up is if you stepped to the left, there was a ditch there, but it was also dark. The street light didn't hit you. And so one of them had stepped into the dark, and then I had told Angela, I poked her leg, and I was like, hey, go lock the back door. And because when she was going to lock the back door, I was going to check the side window. And she screamed, and I ran around, and when I ran around to the kitchen, I could see someone running from the back door. So she locked the back door. I ran, and I stuck the stick in the back window, and they weren't leaving. We sat in my living room in pitch darkness for about 30, 45 minutes, and every time we would look out the window, they'd be standing, and they would kind of come out into the light just enough so we knew that they were still there.
Are you serious?
And my dad came home. When my dad came home, they left.
Okay.
They were like, oh, okay, well, so they left. About a week goes by, and again, we were just kind of hanging out, walking through town, and James approached us again, and this time he was with someone else, a different friend.
Okay.
And said, hey, why don't you guys come over, why don't y'all come over and hang out at my place, and it'll be cool. We'll just hang out outside. I got chairs, whatever. So we were like, okay, because the conversation wasn't going the same direction it was going with the other friend, so we thought that, all was chill.
Yeah.
So we went over, and we were sitting outside, and his friend says to me, he's like, hey, let's run over to the store and get some sodas and stuff and some snacks, and we'll come back, some snack cakes. I was like, okay. So we went, it was about 2 blocks from where James was staying at the time. So we went over to the store, we picked up a few things, and we came back. Well, when we came back, James wasn't sitting outside with Angela anymore. And I was like, where'd they go? And he goes, well, I don't know, they're probably inside. And the door was locked. And I told him, I was like, you need to unlock this door. And he's like, no, everything's fine. I was like, you need to unlock this door. You need to unlock it now. So he unlocked the door. And because we weren't very far from the police station, and I was not one of those people that would hesitate to run that way.
Okay.
And so he unlocked the door. And when he unlocked the door, I caught them in mid. They were having relations, and I started yelling how old she was, and told him he was stupid and needed to get off her. Now, mind you, he was 17 at the time. She had told a story that she was 16, and he believed that. And trust me, with the way she carried herself, it was easy to believe because she did not act like a 12-year-old kid. So when I started yelling how old she was, he jumped up and, and she was mad at me at first. But when I explained to her the kind of position she had put herself in, and her and I had to talk about it, that was it. That was the end of the conversation. We weren't going to talk about it anymore, and she wasn't going to do this anymore. And I told her, I was like, you need to respect yourself. You need, who cares what they want? You need to respect yourself for who you are. And, I know that was a lot coming from me because I was extremely promiscuous as well. But I also did not want her to be like me. I wanted her to be better than me. So,
well, that's a good friend.
I know I saw what was going on in her home, and it saddened me because my mom and I didn't get along, but my mom, I knew that if push came to shove and I needed my mom, she would be there for me no matter what. Even if that meant losing her job to be there for me, she would be there.
Right.
I was sent to live with my dad because I was a brat. I was a habitual runaway, constantly getting into trouble, but not bad trouble, just constantly being arrested for being a runaway. Because I didn't want to be at home. I wanted to have the life of a teenager, and my mom was extremely overprotective because she had me at a very, very young age,
right,
and she didn't want that life for me. So she became very overprotective, which caused me to run. And she just couldn't handle it anymore. She was losing everything, so she just, she got a hold of my dad, and my dad was like, yeah, I'll take her. I don't know why it took you this long to ask.
So you were living where at this time?
I was living in Bastrop with my father.
Oh, okay.
This was when I met Angela. Was when I was living with my dad, and anyway, as time went on, James, we would see him, and he would call me names because I ruined everything he said, and I was just, I was a horrible person for ruining everything. And anyway, flash forward to September, the first couple weeks of September. Angela and I went down to the boat docks, and that was a park. I think it's now called Fisherman's Wharf or something like that, but it'll always be known to us older people as the boat docks. We went down there, and when we came back, Angela had realized she had locked herself out of the house. So she broke a piece of, her window was sectioned out, and so she broke one of the squares in her window to get in, and she had where she lived, the apartment that she lived in was an old hospital that was renovated and made into apartments.
Okay.
And it had the old crank style windows where you had to crank the window open and crank the window closed.
Right.
I know young folks won't know what I'm talking about, but you know, right?
I have windows like that here in South Florida. What do you mean?
But anyway, she reached her hand in and she cranked the window open and she was able to get into her house that way. And that window hadn't been fixed. And the night that this horrible thing took place, that was the way that they had gotten in, was through that broken window. She was supposed to spend the night at my house that night, and I had gotten into trouble because I was supposed to do something that I told my dad I would do, and I didn't do it, and I went to the boat docks with Angela instead. And when I got home, I was in trouble and couldn't go anywhere, and I couldn't have anybody over. And the next day, my friend Shannon came and picked me up, and we went over to Angela's house because we were going to go get her, and we were going to go to Sonic, and then we were going to go down to the boat docks. And her mom answered the door, which was extremely strange because, first of all, this woman never answered the door because she was either A, not home, or B, asleep. I very seldom saw this woman. Every bit of her focus was always on her younger two children. Angela was more of, and I hate to say this because I love Angela dearly, and I know that if she hears this, that it might upset her or trigger her. But in all honesty, her mother treated her more as a nuisance than she did a daughter. And I wasn't the only one that saw that. Even then, I wasn't the only one that saw that. My dad made comments. I remember being in my room and hearing my dad tell my stepmom, I don't understand, that woman acts like that child is a bother, and I don't understand why she acts that way when she's a good kid. And my dad and my stepmom had several discussions about Angela's mother, and they had even discussed asking Angela's mother if she could move in with us, because we did have an extra bedroom.
Right.
Because then that would never leave her at home at night alone. But it never happened, and we never got around to that, because my dad found out about my boyfriend, that I had been keeping a secret for quite some time. And this kind of plays into where I'm going with this story.
Okay.
My dad put me out because he found out that my boyfriend was black, and that was kind of the mentality of the town. That was something that was seen a lot, but never discussed.
And this is Bastrop, Texas.
Correct. It was like I was living there in the 80s and the 90s, but it was like being in the 50s and 60s. It was horrible. You could feel the stares when you walked into a public place. I didn't understand, mind you, I was a teenager. I didn't understand what the big deal was. I couldn't understand why I was, being looked at differently. But, when I showed up at Angela's house that morning to get her, and her mom had answered the door, we walked back to her room, and, it was her mother. She was in her mother's room. because the window that they came through was actually Angela's room.
Okay.
She was laying crossways on the bed, like from corner to corner, and I stopped walking and just started staring because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I was supposed to react to what I was looking at. Here I'm looking at my best friend laying in her mother's bed with a neck brace on and huge bite mark bruises in her face.
Mm.
And her eyes, I remember her eyes were, the blood vessels were broken in parts of her eyes where instead of it being white, it was blood red.
Mm.
And I just kind of stood there for a minute. And the tears just stung my eyes, and I started to cry. And I said, Angela, what happened? And her mom turned on me and said, well, she was here by herself last night, and somebody raped her. Just like it was like everyday conversation, right? And I just
Wow.
stood there and I looked at her mom, and there was like, she was totally void of emotion. And I just stood there. And even when she went and sat down next to Angela, she sat there like she was, like she had something more important to do.
Mm.
I went and I sat down on the bed with her, and I took her hand, and I'm crying, which made her cry, and she kept telling me, don't cry, everything's okay. And I was like, stop comforting me. I don't need to be comforted. I'm here for you. And my friend Shannon, our other friend Shannon, she's like, hey, I'm going to go. I didn't realize that this was a trigger for her. So she just said, just page me when you're ready for me to come get you, or, whatever. But I'm going to go. I got to go feed my grandma's animals. And I was like, okay. So
And
I sat there with her, and we.
that was the mom just leaving. Like,
No, that was our other friend
oh,
Shannon.
okay.
Yeah, no, the mom had already walked out of the room. When I sat down on the bed with her, the mom gave that. Now, mind you, Mary can't hear very well. In order for her to hear you, you have to be looking at her when you're speaking, because she predominantly reads your lips.
Okay.
So when I sat down next to Angela, I made sure to turn myself where her mother couldn't see my mouth, because what I had to say, I didn't want her to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked Angela, I said, my first question was, what happened? And she said to me, I don't really know. I just know that I fell asleep on my stomach on the couch. I said, okay. She said, and the next thing I know, someone was pushing my face into the couch and was tearing my clothes off. And I went, well, do you know who did it? And at first she said no. She goes, I don't know who did it. But I could see the look on her face when she said no.
Mm.
And I don't know if
like
it
she was hiding
more
something.
Right. I don't know if it was more of, I don't want to tell you, or I know you're going to be mad if you find out. But she was like, no, I don't know. And I was like, Angela. She goes, they put a blindfold on me, and I couldn't see. And I was like, okay. Now think back to mid-August. She had sex with James, but they didn't finish. It was
She
the
started.
beginning.
Yeah.
Yes, but I ruined the punchline.
Right.
And so we were sitting there, we were talking, And I asked her, I just started asking her just random questions that kept popping into my head. Like, did they say anything? And she said, yeah, but they were using a fake reggae or a fake Jamaican accent like a reggae song.
Hmm.
And I went, wait, what? And she goes, yeah. She's like, but you could tell it was fake. That was the first clue for me.
Jamaicans are everywhere.
No. The people that do really bad fake Jamaican accents aren't everywhere.
Well, I
But
only
there
say it
was one
because
in
I'm
particular.
Jamaican.
I know, but you have a perfect accent. There's a difference there.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, but I know what you mean.
but right. But there was one person that stood out that did the worst impression of a Jamaican accent that anybody could possibly hear.
Mm.
But I didn't say anything yet. I just
Right.
kept my mouth shut. And I said, okay. I said, what did he say? And she says, I really can't remember everything he said. I just know that he kept saying, you're going to take it the way I give it and you're going to like it.
Mm.
And I was like, okay. That didn't set off any bells. That didn't sound familiar to me. So I just kind of let that ride. And then she said, I said, was there anything familiar to you at all? And she looked at me and the tears welled up in her eyes.
Mm.
And I said, Angela, was there anything familiar to you? The pressure, the feeling, anything? And she nodded her head yes.
Hmm.
And I said, do you know who this was? And she started crying and she nodded her head yes. And I said, was it Jane? And she just rolled over at that point and just kind of buried her head in the pillow. And she said, please don't be mad at me. I was like, why would I be mad at you? You didn't do this.
Right.
And I was like, look at me. Everything's going to be okay. I said, but you need to tell the police. You need to tell the police what you told me. And here's the thing is everybody keeps circling back around saying, it was Rodney's DNA. It was Rodney's DNA. First of all, that rape kit got lost a month after it was taken. When they picked James up, Angela had went down. She filed a report, right?
Yeah.
She told David Board. Now, first of all, David Board would not let me go in with her. She wanted me to go in with her, and David Board said no, that he needed to interview her one-on-one.
Who's David Board?
Because David Board was the lead police officer on the case.
Okay.
I'll get to him in a minute.
Mm-hmm. And just for a little bit of clarity, the James that you're referring to here is James Slaughter, correct?
Correct.
And the Rodney being Rodney Reed.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct. Now, this happened, I want to say it was like September 7th or September 8th of 1989.
Okay.
The day before this happened, not the day of the night that it happened, but the day before this all took place, I was over at my boyfriend's house at the time, which is Ron, who is first cousins with Rodney Reed. Rodney came into the house, and he was like, hey, I'm out. I got to get back. I'm heading out to Wichita Falls. I'll catch y'all next time around. Hopefully everything will go through, and I'll be moving down here soon. They're like, cool. He gave everybody love, said he'd see us later, and he left, okay?
Right.
This was a day before, complete 24, 36 hours prior to this happening with Angela. Now, why would he stick around for that long to do this and then go back to Wichita Falls? Okay, that's the first thing. The second, when they arrested James and they took him in to take his DNA, they took him to Dr. Weimer's office to collect DNA samples. They also took him to the dentist. There was one dentist in Bastrop that was that sat on Main Street across from the big grocery store right in the center of Bastrop, off the highway in town. One dentist I know because he was my dentist. And I was in the dentist's office when the two gals behind the counter were discussing the fact that they brought James Slaughter in to take bite impressions because they think that he raped a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, nobody knows where these bite mark impressions are. Today, they don't know where they're at. The rape kit that they magically found was lost because, see, James ended up back at school, and Angela and I both went to David Board and asked him, why is James out of jail? And he said, well, I don't have any evidence. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't have any evidence? Well, we collected all of the DNA samples that we needed from him, but when we went to go match it to the rape kit, we can't find the rape kit.
That's crazy.
Now,
I'm sure this is going to go a little bit deeper.
Oh, yeah. Flash forward now to April 1996.
Right.
They find Stacy, I believe it was April 22nd, when they found Stacy. On April 24th, David Board is scrambling looking for several rape kits, putting in requests for these rape kits, one of them being Angela's, the one that he claimed he lost in 1989. There were 3 rape kits that were located that he claimed to have lost, 3 different rape kits that he claimed to have lost. All of a sudden, these are magically found in his personal refrigerator in his office that only he had the key to. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not the proper place to store a rape kit from almost 10 years ago.
Not at all.
So why is it now all of a sudden in your office in a refrigerator that only you have a key to? He never could answer that question. Still can't answer that question to this day. The rape kits were never sent off in the manner in which they were supposed to be sent off. They were supposed to go to the DPS, and the DPS was supposed to bag and tag and send them to some lab in California. That's how this was supposed to play out.
Right.
But it never went that way. They never made it to DPS. Ever. Not in 1989. Not in 1996. They never made it.
Huh.
So now, here we are. Angela never once, and everybody keeps saying, oh, Joy steered her towards James because she was trying to protect family. But here's the little secret that a lot of people don't know. James Slaughter is also my ex-husband's cousin. So family's family, right?
Right.
So if I was going to protect one, why wouldn't I have protected the other?
Huh. Okay. Because it's your ex-husband? I don't know. I'm grasping at straws.
Well, no, but he wasn't. He wasn't
your ex at the time.
He was. In fact, he was just at the time of Angela's rape. He was just my boyfriend. We got married 2 years later. when I turned 18.
So James Slaughter was the cousin of
To my husband,
your husband, but
my boyfriend at the time, yeah, and so was Rodney.
so James and
So,
Rodney are cousins,
no,
different sides
I
of
believe the way
different
it works.
parents.
Yeah, I believe the way that works is that
Okay,
James is related to my ex-husband, on my father-in-law's side, and Rodney is
on
related
the
to
mother's
Ron
side.
on my mother-in-law's side.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
but they're both related to my husband.
right,
Which is a kick in the teeth to all those people out there that keep saying, "Oh, she's just trying to protect family." No, I'm not just trying to protect family. I'm trying to get the truth out there.
right,
Never once did Angela ever utter the name Rodney Reed. Not one time. Not once. It never came from her lips, and she never said it. She never indicated. She never. Once she said it was James Slaughter, that's
that's the only place. That's the only person
that
that
was
she
it.
mentioned, and nobody else.
Nobody else. Nobody else. And the reason why she stated it was James Slaughter is because of the familiarity that she felt and the pressure that she felt in her vaginal area.
Right,
Because she said it was the same.
right,
It had already been there once, so she knew. But she was afraid to tell me because she didn't want me to know that they had actually gone that far that night. But I already knew,
right,
and once I let her know that I already knew, it was that little sense of relief, but she elaborated that that's who she felt, who
had
it was.
had raped her. Yeah,
And she never ever swayed from that until the prosecutors came to her and told her, just like they told a couple other people, oh, it wasn't that person, it was this person. And what is she supposed to do? Here she has a felony looming over her head with fear of jail time. Her life has just, I don't want to say she had ruined her life, but her life was not going in the direction that she wanted it to go in.
right,
And when you get told that the charges are going to be dropped and that they're going to help you get your life back if you just say
yeah.
what we tell you to say, well, what are you going to do?
What felony charges was she facing though?
I don't know. I know it was something to do with drugs. She had gotten really bad into drugs, and she's still struggling. Bastrop lied to her. The prosecutor's office not only lied to her, but they gave her false hope and false promises. Yeah, the charge went away. They didn't help her. They didn't help her do anything. They didn't help her get her life back. They got what they wanted out of her and then shoot her away like an annoying fly. And
Wow.
it caused a downward spiral for her that continues to this day.
Right.
You put your faith in, and this is where we make our mistake. We put our faith in man, and we listen to what man says to us, and they say to us, we're going to give you this, and we're going to promise you that, and we're going to let you do this, and we're going to give you all of this stuff, and it's going to be great, but you have to do this one little tiny favor for me first.
Right.
And as soon as they get what they wanted, then all the other stuff just kind of falls by the wayside. And that's what happened to her here. And she wasn't the only one. And I know that none of them will come forward and say, yeah, she's right, that is what happened, because they're too afraid of retaliation. See, I live over 2,000 miles away. It's going to be really hard to get to me.
Right.
Especially since I have several agencies already watching out for this whole situation, because I've gone to them and filed reports and said, these are the people I'm afraid of, these are the people that can cause me harm, and these are the people that can actually do something to me for me coming forward with this information. So they're already very well aware, and they already have, if anything does happen to me, they know exactly who to look at.
Right.
That's why I've gotten a little more bold with speaking out. Racism is not something of yesteryear. It truly does still exist. And even though we try desperately to overcome it, and we try to overlook, okay, well, that person's just ignorant, or that person. In Bastrop, Texas, between 1980, I moved there in 1987 to 1993, when my husband and I moved down further south. But during that time, I saw more racism in that time, in that town, than I had ever seen my entire life. And I grew up with a man that was a white supremacist.
Really?
Not kidding, yes. And I never saw the level of racism out of that man, my dad, than I ever saw in that town. That town had more racist people. And I don't use that term lightly. I know the difference between being prejudiced and being racist. I know the difference between disliking and thinking that you're superior. And trust me when I say, Bastrop, Texas, the white people in Bastrop, Texas, that held some type of job as far as police what baffled me was Richard Hernandez, who was a sergeant with the police department. Even him would do little racial things towards Ron and I when we were just boyfriend and girlfriend. So, we were walking down the street. We were going to the movie theater that they used to sit on the corner of Chestnut and Pecan. And it burnt down some years back, but that's where he worked, and I would go and I would help him, and because I would help him, they would let me watch movies for free.
Right.
So we were on our way, we were walking down, and Richard Hernandez was going the same direction that we were going. He had a female ride along with him, okay? I was 16, almost 17 at the time, and Ron was 18, almost 19. He cut us off. He drove into our path to stop us, okay? And asked Ron for identification. Didn't say why. The only reason we knew he was a police officer is because he was in a police car and had on a police uniform. That was the only reason we knew. He never identified himself as a police officer. I guess he just figured we'd know.
Well, the car and the uniform gave it away, he says.
Well, I guess. But still, by law, he should have identified himself.
Right.
Now, I didn't know that then. I know that now.
Right.
And mind you, I'm going to reiterate, being as young as I was, I did not understand what some of the consequences could be for being a mouthy brat. Okay? He cuts us off. He asks him for his identification. Ron hands it to him, and I was like, what are you doing? And he just kept telling me, shh, just leave it alone, shh, just leave it alone. So he gives him his identification. Richard looks at his identification, looks at me, looks at him, hands it back, gets in his car, and pulls off. Never says another word. Okay? Just pulls off. And as we're walking, there had just been a stoplight. The only stoplight that was in the town that was red, yellow, green, and not just a flashing red one,
Right.
was at that corner. And he got stopped at that light. And he had his window down. And I could hear him laughing. And I heard him tell that woman, did you see his face? I can make them jump like that all day long if I wanted to. And he didn't see me walking up. And I said, excuse me, can I have your badge number? And the look on his face was like, huh? Yeah. And he gives me his badge number. He rattles off his badge number. And I was like, and you're Sergeant Hernandez, correct? And he goes, well, yeah. And I was like, exactly. And I walked off, and I went to the corner. Well, as the light turned green for them to go, our light turned for us to cross. He flipped that corner and pulled up into the driveway to cut us off again. And he says, wait, let me explain something. And I stood there with my arms crossed, and I went, go ahead, I'm listening.
You know, funny
And
enough, you
Ron,
said that. I could imagine you doing just that as you said it.
Well, Ron at that time he's not freaking out, but you could see the worry on his face.
Right.
And I didn't understand why he looked so worried. And he says, Richard says to me, the reason I stopped him is because I said, wait a minute, let me guess. It's the identification of somebody you're looking for? And he just stood there and he goes, well, his description. And I was like, exactly. His description fits someone you're looking for. So you stopped and asked him for his identification, but you never once told him that. You just asked for his identification, looked at it, and walked off. But you never explained yourself.
Right.
And he says, well, I'm explaining now. And I'm like, yeah, you're explaining now. And I will explain it to the chief tomorrow morning. And I walked away. And now, mind you, I was so mousy and just very matter of fact. Even to this day, I'm that way. But it was
about
real
to ask
bad
if anything
coming out
changed.
of No, not really.
Right.
But it was bad coming out of a 16-year-old. Because
Right.
16-year-old kids don't talk that way to adults.
They do now, but
yeah, well, no, they go further than I ever did.
yeah.
I was mouthy, but I always tried to keep some level of respect. These kids these days, they don't know what respect is.
Right.
But I did go down and I did speak with the chief of police, and I did let him know, what had happened. The chief of police just kind of brushed me off.
Of course.
Okay, whatever. I know, which I kind of figured was going to happen. Again, this town was not about equality. This town was about I'm better than you, and what makes me better than you is the fact that I have a shiny badge on my chest. That even makes me even more superior.
Right.
So during that time, Ed Samala, who, now mind you, I say this with a little tongue-in-cheek, but I hated Ed because he was always there, and he was always telling me I shouldn't be doing stuff. So I just didn't like him. And yeah, in some cases he was telling me this stuff for my own good, but being a hard-headed teenager,
Right.
you don't think of it that way. When Angela and I became friends, he thought that was the best thing for Angela because he kind of knew what was going on, but until he was able to prove it or see it for himself or have some kind of a report, there was really nothing he could do about it.
So who was Ed now?
Ed Salmella was a police officer that was one of the lead investigators on the Stacy Stites case, who mysteriously committed suicide with a hand that he couldn't hold a gun in. Just saying.
Huh. And wasn't that also the gun that was turned in?
Correct.
Days before?
He had turned that. Correct. He had turned that gun in to David Board. See how it's all coming into full circle?
That I knew about from talking with David Fisher about the Rodney Reed case on a couple of occasions. For those listening in for the first time and not really familiar with some of that, you can check out the archives and pull up the Rodney Reed case. It's a story with David Fisher. There are 2 shows with him. You can check those out. And you'll see how all this comes together.
So Ed and I had that love-hate relationship.
Right.
And the one thing that I can honestly say, that a police report was given saying that I made this statement, but the statement that I gave it to David Board, the statement that was on that paper was not given to David Board. It was given to Ed Salmella, and it was given to him at a separate time that Angela and I had been hanging out, and it was concerning something completely different. But this was given as a statement for Angela's rape, and I'm still baffled by that because I even stated, I was like, wait a minute, this is my statement, this is my signature, but this wasn't given at this time. This was given at a previous time. So Angela and I had been hanging out. And it was time she needed to be home at a certain time, so I had walked her home, and I met up with a couple of other friends of mine in town, and we had gotten into a car with a stranger. Bad children, don't ever do that. That is the worst mistake you could ever make.
In a town like Bastrop, who's a stranger though? It's not that big a town.
This guy, he was a stranger. We never seen him before. And in Bastrop, Texas, you don't ever see a Corvette. Never.
Okay.
This man had a nice, shiny red Corvette, and I wanted to ride in it.
Oh, there you go.
And my 2 friends and I piled in. I sat on the center console, and they sat lapped up in the passenger seat, and the next thing we know, we're not in Bastrop anymore. We're heading up 969, heading towards the north side of Austin. And there was a stoplight, and at that stoplight, now mind you, there hadn't been any stops. When we realized that we were going a lot further than we were supposed to, it was kind of too late by then. And I could see the stoplight ahead, and I just started praying, God, please let that light turn red. Please let that light turn red, because catty corner from that light where we were going to stop, if it turned red for us, there was a Circle K. And so I just kept saying, God, please let that light turn red. Please let that light turn red. And the light turned red, and I reached over Jennifer and Heather, and I popped the door open, and I pushed them out, and I jumped out behind them. The guys, obviously, he took off. He peeled out and took off. But when I jumped out, I broke the heels off my shoes. So I'm walking lopside, and we get up out of the it wasn't a big ditch, but it was enough for us to kind of roll down, tuck and roll into.
Right.
We climbed up out of the ditch, and we took off running. And the intersection wasn't big, so there wasn't a whole lot of traffic, but there was some. And how we managed to dart across that intersection and not get hit was nothing but the grace of God. I am so not even kidding. But got over to the Circle K. We called 911. Washington County. We were actually in Washington County. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about where I live right now. We were in Travis County.
Okay.
Travis County police showed up, and they said, well, we can't do anything but take you to the Bastrop County line. We can't take you home. And so I was like, well, if you could just get us to the Bastrop County line, I'm sure my dad will come get us. And they were like, no, we have another officer that's going to meet us there that's going to come get you. Now, mind you, this is a county line situation. It should have been county cop to county cop.
Right.
But because Ed heard that it was me, he came with another female officer, met the Travis County police officers at the Bastrop County line, and picked us up himself.
Okay.
He didn't have to do that.
So that's city police.
That's right.
Doing what county police should have done.
Correct.
Cool.
But he did it because
he knew
heard
you.
that it was, he knew me.
Right.
He knew my dad.
Right.
So, that's why when people talk bad about Ed, it upsets me, because Ed may have been a lot of things, but he was not a coward. He was not a bad person. And he would always would strive to do the right thing by people.
Right.
Even if he didn't agree with it, if he felt that, if that person felt that it was right for them, he would try to help that person.
Mm-hmm.
But the other officers weren't so nice. I got married 3 days after my 18th birthday. I got my driver's license the day after my 18th birthday. And David Board pulled me over a total of 16 times in 30 days just to see my driver's license. Just wanted to check my driver's license. And it was when he made me get out of the car, and I stepped to the front of the car. We had a little Chrysler, some little tiny Chrysler type car.
Mm-hmm.
He made me come around to the front of the car, and he leaned over me, and I'll never forget it. I will never forget it till the day I die. And he looked me in the eye, and he told me, because he asked me, he goes, "Did you marry that boy?" And I said, "Yeah, I married him." And he said, "Your daddy should have taken you out back and beat the end lover right out of you, is what he should have done."
Wow.
Yeah. And so I made another trip down to the chief's office. And nothing ever came of it. I filed the report. I filed a harassment report. Nothing ever came of it. So, I mean, I'm just trying to give you an idea of what they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Because the town hasn't changed. Nothing has changed in this town.
Even now?
The people that, even now,
jeez, people
are still this way. That's why I don't rest my head in Bastrop, Texas. If I go to visit, I go to visit the day and I'm out. I have been home twice in 20 years because I just can't do it. I cannot. First of all, I'm afraid to linger too long in Texas. I went home for a visit in 2013. I was there for 4 days, and I wanted to come home. I didn't want to be there anymore. I was uncomfortable the entire time. I went in January because I did an interview with someone else in January, and I said, "I'll tell you what, I will do this if you can have me home within 24 hours. And they did. They flew me out. I went to a hotel. I stayed the night. I went to my interview the next day, and then I went directly to the airport and flew back home the next day.
Mm.
Um,
And this was this
I don't
past
think-
January.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it was for the same thing. You know, people don't understand what exactly what people are dealing with in Bastrop. You know, back then it was bad. It was terribly bad. When Rodney had mentioned that he was threatened, him and Chris, when they had mentioned that they had been threatened, well, Rodney was the one that was threatened. Chris was just kind of an innocent bystander that heard it all.
All right.
People didn't believe him. But it's true that these things really happened. People turned a blind eye to the racism and the prejudice and they would turn a blind, like it was almost like just drinking water. It was just a natural thing in Bastrop.
Right.
You know, and so when all of this came out and they were like, well, he raped a 12-year-old, I was like, the first time I heard that, I was like, no, he didn't. And I was fighting and clawing and scratching to get to who I needed to get to. And you know what they told me? We can't accept your testimony because you're related and your testimony is viewed as bias.
Really?
How what? Oh, yeah.
No.
My testimony was viewed as being biased because I was related to Rodney at the time. I said, but that has nothing to do with it. The fact that I was sitting next to her when she said who raped her.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that told her to go tell the police who did this to her.
In fact, you took her to the police station.
I did. It was, and her mother, they made her mother come because they wouldn't take her statement unless her mother was there.
Okay.
She wanted me to go in the room with her because her mother can't hear.
Right.
So David Board said no. He said, nope, it's either your mom or nobody. And she's like, well, having my mom in there is kind of pointless because she can't hear anything I'm saying. And so I told Angela everything would be okay. I was going to go home. I only lived a couple blocks from the police station. I told her, I was like, when you're done, just come get me or, you know, whatever. I said, all right, I'll come by your house in a couple hours. And she's like, okay. She gave her statement. She told him, because before I even left, I heard her tell David Board, I know who did this. And David asked, are you sure? And she said, yes, James Potter did this to me. He says, are you positive? She said, yes. He goes, well, let's go talk. And he took her back and made me leave. And the main reason David Board made me leave is because I was a mouthy little brat.
Right.
And I wouldn't let him get away with, you know, anything. And, you know, and it progressively got worse between, you know, his attitude towards me as I got older. He, you know, I mean, this is a man that was pulled over several times on a Dewey charge. And the last time, the only reason he resigned this last time that he got pulled over is because the idiot turned around and looked at the police officer and said to him, and I quote, I'm a fellow officer, I'm a brother. What's it going to take for you to turn a blind eye? And that police officer said, you got the wrong cop. So he handed in his resignation. but the kindness of Bastrop, Texas, they allowed him to stay on, until he retired, which was just a few months out, so he could collect his pension.
Right.
Please tell me, where is that even legal? This man committed a crime.
Several crimes.
He committed, exactly, and he was caught several times. But they allowed him to finish out his time so he could collect his pension in full. Chew on that one for a minute.
I can't.
I mean, I don't.
I can't.
I can't either. I can't either. I have a sister that is, she's not my blood sister, but she's my sister, who is a Travis County. She was a Travis County. She's now a detective. I have a cousin who is a police officer in another state. And even they will tell you they don't know of any officers that would ever, have that privilege. None.
But the racism and the network of supremacists that are in Bastrop.
Yeah, back in that time, yeah. I don't play with.
This is not that long ago. You talk about back in that time. You make it sound like you really do make it sound like the 50s and 60s. We're talking about 80s and 90s.
That's what it felt like. But that's what it felt like, Kevin. I'm not kidding. It really felt like that. It felt like when I moved to Bastrop with my dad, it felt like I took this giant leap back in time. Everything moved slower. Everyone, as long as I was just with my dad and my stepmom, everybody was pleasant to me. Everybody was pleasant to me. But the minute they saw me with Ron, it wasn't that way anymore. We had a man literally change seats at Castle's restaurant so he could stare at us over his cup of coffee and watch us eat. Now, mind you, Ron is kicking me underneath the table, telling me to shut up, but my big mouth couldn't do it. And I looked at him and I went, "Are you hungry? Bring me a plate so I can give him some of my food," because he looks hungry staring at me like that.
Wow.
He got up and he slammed his coffee on the table and he turned and he looked at the waitress that was there. I want to say she was either one of the owners or the owner's daughter or something like that. She was affiliated with the ownership of that establishment.
Right. And
he said to her, "As soon as you stop serving people like that, I'll bring my business back in here," and walked out. So, I mean, Ron was constantly telling me, stop it. But I did not have the ability to do so. When I saw something wrong, I made sure I pointed it out, and I pointed it out loudly.
Yeah. Well, that's called justice. That's called being noble. That is called recognizing equal rights. That's called being humane.
That's called pointing out a bigot. And letting them know, I see it. I see you for what you are. Everybody, people are people. And you turn us all inside out, we all look the same. So why, if we would stop labeling each other.
Yeah.
Kevin, you're my neighbor. You're my neighbor. You're my friend. And that's how I see you. That's it. That's how I see you. But you let somebody else come in, and they're going to be like, "Oh, yeah, but he's a black dude from Jamaica that lives in Florida, and you're a white girl from Texas that lives in the Pacific Northwest."
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? Kevin's my neighbor. We've had nice, long text message chat, concerning this whole situation.
Yeah.
I don't hesitate to. I don't. If you want to point a finger at me for something that I've done, and if I recognize that, yeah, I've done it, I'm going to be the first one to apologize for that.
Right.
I'll be like, bro, I'm so sorry. I did not mean it the way that you took it, or whatever the case may be. If I offend or I hurt your feelings or I have said something to upset someone, I am the first one to apologize for hurting somebody or for upsetting somebody, because I hate that feeling,
Right.
and I don't want to bestow it on anyone.
Yeah.
And when all of this went down and all of this took place, and they were coming to me and they were telling me, Joy, you got to understand, this is what she said. This is, she said that Rodney did this to her. And I was like, she's confused, because his name never once came up.
Right.
Not one time. And here's the funny thing is, they've got these statements from me and from Shannon and from someone else and from Louis. Louis was Angela's boyfriend at the time, okay?
Mm-hmm. Was Louis black or white?
Louis was Mexican.
Okay. Another mix.
Yes. Well, Angela's half.
Okay.
Angela's half white, half Hispanic. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, I gave a statement, Shannon gave a statement. Now, mind you, I don't remember giving this statement, but apparently I gave this statement. Shannon gave a statement. Somebody else gave a statement. I don't remember who somebody else was. And Louis gave a statement. Louis is the only one that made it sound like there was another black guy there that wasn't anyone that was with us or anyone that we knew, and only his statement was notarized.
Hmm?
My statement wasn't notarized. Shannon's statement wasn't notarized. I know, because I have it. I have my statement. There's no notary stamp on that.
Wow.
The only statement that was notarized was one that gave a half-hearted description of somebody that he didn't know that talked about boxing with him. That's how they are trying to link Rodney to this. And they knew, because, see, Rodney was having legal issues, okay?
Right.
So he had to come down and put all of these legal things in place so he could move to his grandmother's house. So Bastrop County and Bastrop PD knew that Rodney was in process of moving to Bastrop. So it wasn't a secret that he had been there. But they also knew he was supposed to be back in Wichita Falls by a certain day at a certain time. And if he wasn't there, he was going to be in trouble.
Right.
Which was a day prior to any of this taking place.
And
so
some 9 years later.
9 years later, all of a sudden, DNA matches a rape kit that they lost 9 years prior.
I'm going to say something here. Last week, someone commented on one of the shows I did with David Fisher and said how I was evil and David was evil because we are saying that Rodney did not rape Angela and he did not rape and kill Stacy.
Mm-hmm.
And how started even quoted information that was put out, I guess, by prosecution. And all I said in response, because they said, so you want to tell me that I don't have it right, that, and started listing. And I said, no, you don't have it right.
Mm-mm.
And
No.
again, you're going to, and they were disrespectful, with
Oh yeah.
referring to Stacy. And I said, you're going to show some respect. And there are many people that really and true, I don't know if he's from Bastrop. I don't know if he or she, I don't know if the individual is from Bastrop. I don't know if they're white. I don't know. Based on their profile, I can tell nothing about them.
Right.
All I know is that they're saying Rodney is guilty. Well, what do you know
Well,
about Rodney Reed for you to be saying that Rodney is guilty? What? Just what you are told?
exactly. That's the thing. And this is where everyone gets caught up. They listen to what other people say, first of all. Then they get all of these things that were put out by the prosecution,
Right.
okay? And of course the prosecution is he's guilty, 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 guilty. So
Because
of
they have an
course
agenda.
everything that's put exactly. And so everything that's put out by the prosecution is pointing in that direction. But yet they don't want to actually take a step back and look at everything that's in front of their face. It's kind of, I don't know if your grandmama ever said it to you, but my grandmama always used to tell me, baby, stop focusing on that spot, take a step back and look at the whole picture, and you'll see something different.
Oh yeah.
But everybody is focusing on one spot, one area of this picture, instead of taking about 4 steps back and looking at the picture in its entirety.
Yeah.
And if they would look at the picture in its entirety, they would see a storyline. They would see exactly what happened, and they would see exactly what the truth is. But people are too narrow-minded these days. They can't do that. They can't take that step back. They can't look and focus on the entire picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just imagine the stuff that's going to be said about me in the comments. Trust me, I already know it's coming, and I won't even look at them because you know what? Haters going to hate, and that's just the way it is.
Exactly. And
fine,
it's fine. Go ahead and hate. If you're going to hate, and it's going to draw more attention to people looking for the facts, go ahead and hate.
Exactly. And here's something that I learned about, I want to say 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's two things that I learned. The first thing I learned was it is none of my business what other people think of me.
Yes.
Absolutely none of my business. That's first and foremost. And the second thing is, if I have to spend 1 minute proving myself to anyone, I have forgotten my own value.
Mm.
And I'm worth a whole lot more than what any of these people have to say in these comments. So when it all comes out in the wash, and everybody is actually able to see from point A to point B, they'll see that what the reality is. That's just like the fact that I talked to Stacy on the phone. Rodney had to go into the store. He didn't have change to call her back. He told me to talk to her. I talked to her while he went in the store and got himself a soda.
Mm-hmm.
And came back out. There was another time I was working at Miss Case. She was the Bell Bonds lady, but she also had a catering service that she did, different caterings with, and she did Meals on Wheels and stuff like that,
right.
Little things like that. And I was in there and I was making some appetizers for some event that she had going on, and Rodney came in and he was holding hands with a very little petite dark-haired girl in an HEB uniform. And we weren't allowed to talk to the people that Miss K was doing business with,
mm-hmm.
but we could acknowledge them if they were family. And I was like, hey, Rodney, what's up? And he turned around and he looked at me. He's like, "Hey, girl, what's up?" And because I was a talker, and
Mm-hmm.
I would just blah blah blah. I would get diarrhea of the mouth, and I'd just start talking about stuff that I saw or stuff that I did or whatever. And later on that evening, I had went back over to Ron's parents' house, and he stopped by. He saw my car, and he stopped by. And he's like, "Hey, that girl that you saw me with," and I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Man, keep that on the down low." And I was like, "Why? She was cute." And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, I know, but she got a man." And I was like, "Oh." And
Mm.
he goes, "You feel me?" And I was like, "I feel you, bro." And I never said another word about it. Everybody keeps saying, "Why are you waiting 20 years?" I didn't wait 20 years. I
Right.
didn't wait 20 years. I've been trying to come out with this stuff since I found out about all of this stuff going down. But I was told I was biased because I was related to Rodney. I was told that they couldn't hear my statement because of my relationship with the Reed family. You name it, there was an excuse for it. I didn't
So,
wait 20 years.
so had you been saying that you believed that Rodney did it, now they'd be quickly saying how, oh, even his own family members are saying, here's a
Right.
statement from the the wife of his cousin.
Exactly. Exactly. It's one of those situations where you can't win for losing. I mean, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So,
Right.
I mean, it's like, what do you do at that point? All you can do is say, look, in 1989, Angela was raped by James Slaughter. I know because I wasn't there when it happened, but I was there the next morning, and she confided that in me,
But you
and
were
I
there the
talked her
first
into
time
going
it
to the
happened.
police. I was the
Because
first time
technically,
that
that is statutory rape.
yes, but we didn't know that then. We were
Yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
So we didn't know anything. We didn't know what statutory rape was. We just knew that if a man forced a girl to do it, it was rape. That was
Right.
all we knew. We
Right.
didn't know that there were all these different levels. Um, but and I pulled her out of that room then. And then, I mean, I've had people say, "Oh, she was trying to pimp Angela out to James." I was trying to keep that girl away from him.
You were pimping
I
her
mean,
out.
yes.
Wow.
You name it. It has been said about me.
Wow.
And I was a 16-year-old kid. I was a 16-year-old kid
So,
that kind of became a surrogate parent, so to speak, to Angela, because she always came to me with different things, and then of course I would say, "I don't know, let's go talk to my dad." But, it was always her coming to me going, "Hey, I have a question about this. Hey, what do I do about this?" I mean, it was just little things like that she would come. It was like a big sister type / mom type situation that I was in with her. But I loved her dearly, and she was my best friend, and there was nothing in this world that I would not do for her.
yeah.
And I can honestly tell you, I'm not going to sit there and force her to say something that isn't true. And I let her come out with the name, not
Mm-hmm.
me. I already, when she said bad Jamaican accent, I kind of already had my flag in the air and knew, oh,
Right.
okay. And something that people don't seem to understand is James was the football hero. He was everybody would turn out to the games to watch him play because he was phenomenal. He was just amazing on that field. And
That
he
was
got a
going
full
to be
ride
my question.
scholarship.
My question was going to be, what was it about James Slaughter that made the cops turn this blind eye to the allegations against him? That made what's his face? David
David Board.
Board, yes. That made
Because
him mysteriously lose the rape kit. What was it about
James
James? But now we
James
know.
Slaughter was a hometown football hero. He was going to put Bastrop. In fact, you would hear the coaches in the Texas Grill talking about James Slaughter and how he was going to put Bastrop on the map, and he was going to be the next pro in the NFL, and he was going to come out of Bastrop, Texas. And I mean, it would go on for hours. He was a phenom. There was no pitting anyone against him. This guy was amazing when you put a football in his hand. I'm not kidding. This is why all the girls liked him. And that was his response when he was arrested was, I ain't gotta rape no BITC. Y'all let you finish. They throw it at me. I ain't gotta take nothing. They give it up willingly. That was his response. Nobody wanted to see him in trouble.
Right.
But he needed to answer for what he had done. But James had just gotten a full ride scholarship to college. I want to say he went to Georgia. And the college that he went to, I want to say was all male college, possibly. I don't quote me on that because I can't remember where he got his scholarship to, but it was full ride scholarship. Comes back after after his freshman year football, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, when you going back? And he's like, I'm not. And I was like, what? You got 4 years free? And you're not going back? We need you to get out of Bastrop. We don't want you here. But I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. You know, we wanted him out of Bastrop. Some of us girls did.
Right.
And come to find out, he had gotten kicked out, expelled, because he had sexually assaulted a female at a neighboring college. Same exact MO that was used when Angela was raped. Broke in through a window, blindfolded, took from behind, and bitten. But yet they couldn't bring that up, you know, because then of course that would kind of clear Rodney.
Right.
And so that was never brought up. Neither was the fact that when he did come home, shortly after he did come home, there was a 13-year-old girl that ended up being raped. Same MO. And James was arrested for it. Because he'd already lost his scholarship, so now the cops didn't care.
Where's James now?
So, you know, he's in prison.
For what?
Good place for him. To be honest with you, I don't know. I don't care. I just know that he is locked up and he is supposed to be there for a very long time.
How ironic is that?
I don't think it's that ironic. I think it's just dessert.
Well, yeah.
I mean, call me a brat if you want to, but I mean, I feel that, you know, what comes around goes around, and eventually, you know, God don't like ugly, and he's going to get you at some point in your life. He's going to show you that what you're doing is wrong. And I do know, I do have the reason why he's there. I have it somewhere. I just haven't had the urge or the desire to read through it. I just know that he's in prison and he's going to be there for a long time, and that's where he belongs. Don't get me wrong, okay? When I was younger, we did all swoon over James. every last one of us females did.
Right.
I mean, he was handsome, and he was charismatic, and he was just, you know, a great person to hang around. He was a lot of fun at parties. You know, I mean, at school dances, he was, you know, awesome. Yeah, I mean, it was just, he was great.
But people say the same thing about Rodney.
Exactly. But here's the difference. I know what James is capable of. And I know that Rodney wasn't perfect. Rodney was not, never once will you ever hear me say, Rodney was a perfect angel and he never would have ever hurt anybody in his whole entire life. You would never hear me say that. Because Rodney had his pitfalls too.
Mm-hmm.
But Rodney, every female that there was only one that actually accused Rodney, and it went to court and all this, and it got thrown out. Do you know why it got thrown out?
Why?
Because it was found that she staged it. She staged the entire scene and made up the entire story. Then the female that supposedly led the police to Rodney, I don't even remember her name.
Is that the one that was raped on the train tracks?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was a different one. She, and the funny part about it is the guy that raped her walked around town for a week bragging about
Talking about it, yes.
Yes. I know, because I heard it. But
well, you heard him directly say it?
Yeah. Pat Barnett, everybody knew who Pat Barnett was. Well, everybody within our, you know, friends and family all knew who Pat Barnett was.
Right.
In fact, when Ron and I split up, I had come to town, and I was just because I was going out that night, but I needed to go check in on my dad because my dad had been sick.
Right.
And my biological father. He had been sick, so I went to go check on him and see how he was doing, and I stopped at Little Long's to grab a pack of smokes and a soda. And Pat Barnett was standing outside, and he was like, hey, and I was like, no. And he goes, no, come here, let me talk to you for a minute. I was like, you know what, you got me bent the wrong way, bro. I got in my car and I left. You know, but yeah, Pat, that's just the kind of person Pat was.
Wow.
You know, and that's the thing is they have not talked to anyone that actually knows these people, that have spent time with these people prior to any of this stuff happening, any of these things going on, any of the criminal elements that have come into play. They have not talked to anyone other than Rodney's family. They haven't reached out and talked to anyone else.
Well, they definitely haven't spoken to anybody that could get him off. Definitely not.
No.
They've suppressed all of those people.
Absolutely not. No, they tell us that our testimony is biased because we were either related somehow, or we had a close relationship with the Reed family, or it was always an excuse. They always have some excuse as to why we could not possibly testify. And the one that I heard the most was that because of my relationship with the Reed family, my testimony would be considered biased. So they wouldn't hear me. They nixed me right away. That was back in 2000?
Right.
It was 99 or 2000. No, it was in 99 because it was right after I had moved. I had left Texas and came up here, and they were trying for an appeal.
Okay.
They wouldn't hear me the first time at all. They wouldn't even look in my direction the first time. The second time I reached out to his attorney at the time, and I want to say it was in the later half of 99. No, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. It was in the earlier half of 2000. I reached out, and they gave me his attorney's number. I called his attorney. I talked to his attorney. I told his attorney everything I knew. They said, well, we'll get back to you. Never heard from them again. Never heard from them again. And I was like, okay. Well, then I reached out again, and I was like, hey, my name is Joy. I've talked to you before. Oh, we don't have this case anymore. Well, can you tell me who does? I have reached out several times to several different attorneys.
And just give them the run around. Just shuffled in the pack.
Yep. Exactly. And so that's why when I hear that all of these people are out for justice for Rodney, and then I recall the conversations that I've had with previous attorneys, I'm sorry, but I think that's crap. I don't think anybody has been out to try to help him at all. I think that everybody has just kind of made this a cut and dry. Well, nothing we can do. We'll just try to stop him from being murdered, but that's about it. Because there's only been one attorney that has actually communicated with me concerning all of this, and that is Quincy. Quincy's the only one. All the other ones have kind of yeah, okay, whatever.
Who's Quincy?
It's one of the attorneys currently working on his case.
Must be a new attorney.
He works. No, he's actually been around for a while.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if he's an attorney or if he's a paralegal, but he's working on the case somehow.
Okay.
But I've talked to him a couple of different times.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I was like, anytime you want somebody to come down and testify to the way Bastrop was during that time, I'll be more than happy to come down and tell it all. I don't care. What are they going to do? This is almost 30 years later. What are they going to do?
It's funny. I just saw in the stew pot, which is, for those who don't know, others would call it a chat room. Quincy is an attorney. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Someone just responded in the stew pot to say that there was someone in here from Bastrop, and they went. They were in for a little while, and then they came out.
Yeah. Well, sometimes when you're shaking the truth tree and letting all the nuts fall out, people run for cover.
Yeah.
And that's basically how this is. Bastrop was not. It was that small town. Look the other way. That didn't really happen. Did I see that? No, you didn't see that. Type town. There was a man that owned a junkyard in the dead center of town, right across the street from this little store where everybody says Rodney committed all of these crimes.
Yeah.
The man that owned that junkyard right across the street from the store held KKK meetings in that junkyard even during that time. Now you're going to tell me that a black man in the middle of the night is going to be able to stand there and flag down cars knowing what goes on across the street? Confidently do this?
Yeah.
Because that's what they're saying Rodney did.
Right. So, yeah, that doesn't add up at all.
No, everybody knew that's what that man did in that place. Everybody knew it, but nobody said a word.
That's funny. Nobody ever mentioned that. I haven't read anywhere where anybody would mention anything like that. And, people really need to get an idea of what Bastrop is like. and this is it. Here it is. They're saying Quincy is an attorney with Meyer Brown in Houston. Okay, thank you very much for that information.
He calls me, because when he calls me from a Houston number, so that makes sense. But, no, I mean, it's people don't understand the kind of things that even in the late 80s, early 90s was still going on in Bastrop, Texas. You know, I mean, this is stuff that you think only happened in the 50s and 60s, and no, bro, this was going on in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, I mean, it's mind blowing. If you really want to, you know, take a look at the way things, and if you really want to dig deep into the Reed family, you can go back to the late 50s. Rodney had an uncle. Uncle Walter had a brother named Johnny. Johnny was murdered because of a white woman. So, I mean, this isn't something that
I've heard that before, though.
Yes.
Now that you're
Uncle
saying
Johnny,
it's I heard it somewhere. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was probably David Fisher that I heard it from, but I heard it from somewhere.
Uncle Johnny was murdered because of a white woman. You know, I don't know the details of it.
Right.
Because Ron's mama would never talk about it because it hurt her heart. You know, and she was always worried about Ron when Ron got involved with me, until she got to know me and she realized that I didn't care.
You were different.
I was going to say what needed to be said. I was different.
Let me ask you this.
But
okay, go ahead.
I was treated different too.
Yeah.
I was not treated like the white girl from down the street. I was treated like their daughter.
Right.
So that made a huge difference.
I want you to, if you could, tell us how your father felt about the whole thing after Angela got raped. Because you said you
My
couldn't
dad,
she couldn't come over because you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
yeah. My dad was devastated, first of all. He was ready to load up and go hunting. And my brother-in-law talked him down, told him, you know, Dennis, you can't do that. You need to let the law handle it. And my dad was angry. He was very angry. And then he got mad at me. And I think this is kind of where me blaming myself kind of came into play, because my dad did say a couple of times, you know, if you'd have just done what you were told to do, she would have been here. And I did. I blamed myself for a very long time. But as I got older, I realized I was a kid, and I did kid things.
Right.
And I got in kid trouble.
Right.
And that's just kind of how it played out. Is I did kid things and got in kid trouble, and it ended up costing my friend a lot.
Yeah.
You know, emotionally and physically. And I failed her in a lot of ways. And I see it now differently, but back then I saw it as being a horrible friend, but in reality I was just being a kid. But, you know, when she needed me, her mom moved her out of town and moved her out by the skating rink. And I wasn't allowed to see her anymore. I wasn't allowed to be friends with her anymore. Her mom said that I couldn't be her friend anymore. And a lot of it was because Angela was taking a stand and telling her mom, hey, you know, I'm your kid too. You need to pay attention to me too.
Right.
And her mom didn't like that. Her mom didn't like that at all. Her mom didn't like the fact that, you know, she was actually standing up for herself, because very bad things had happened to Angela before I met her. That was the reason why Angela wasn't allowed to go with her brother and sister when they went to go visit their dad. Mary blamed Angela for her divorce because Angela told the truth about what her stepdad had been doing to her. And it just, I think her mom resented her for telling the truth.
Which is not unusual.
No, it isn't. And I'm learning that as I got older and I started doing a lot of research into, situations like this. I found a few things out. One, there are times where the parent does resent the child for coming forward and telling the truth if they feel as though that their situation was the happiest ever, and they felt as though that they were never going to have any better.
Right.
I also found out that young girls that these things have happened to, they do one of two things. They either completely back away and don't want anything to do with sexual relationships at all, or they cling to them because that's their idea of what love is supposed to be.
Right.
And because I could never understand, exactly what happened, what went wrong, where things just kind of turned towards, I couldn't figure out why things went the way they went with her. When I was 14, I was not as brutal as her, but it had happened to me as well. I am, you hear all these women shouting, I'm a survivor. Well, I'm more than a survivor. And the thing about it is I've chosen not to live as a victim.
Yeah.
I actually chose to, do better, to prove that, hey, I'm better than that. I'm better than what happened to me. I'm not going to let that define me. And in some cases, that doesn't always necessarily happen. And it's heart-wrenching, especially when I know the condition that Angela is in right now. And I love her. I have always loved her, and I will continue to love her, and I will be there for her every step of the way as long as she needs me. Even when she doesn't need me, I'm going to be annoying, and I'm going to be there for her anyway.
Yeah.
We
that's
did
love.
lose touch. Well, we lost touch for years. And it's just, I sometimes I ask myself if I would have just looked a little harder, if I would have just, dug a little deeper, and maybe if I would have found her earlier, things would be different. But if ifs were fifths, we'd all be drunk, right?
There we go.
So we can't live in the ifs and what ifs. We have to live in this is how it is now, and we're going to move forward from here. So, and that's what we're trying to do now.
Yeah. I want to thank you for, this is a lot. And to even now come forward and finally get the opportunity to say it as it is, to paint the picture of Bastrop as it really was, not how people would say it is, not how it was assumed it was, but how it really was because you lived it. You were
I did.
there. You weren't there as a black person being targeted. You
No.
were there as a white person involved with a black person still targeted.
Yes.
You got both
Yep.
sides. You got the good because when you were with your parents, everything was all good. And you got the not good when you were with your then boyfriend who became your husband, still living in Bastrop.
Right. I mean, I will never, ever, ever will you hear me say that I can understand what racism is. Because I cannot put myself in a black woman's shoes and say I know firsthand what this is, because I don't. I can only tell you what I have seen as a white woman involved with a black man.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you what I saw, and I can tell you that I can empathize, but I can never tell you the feeling that a black woman or a black man has.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I've seen it. I know what it looks like. I know the ugly, disgusting face that it has. But I can never compare what I went through to what they went through, ever. There's never a comparison there. So I don't ever want anybody to ever think that I am doing that in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I just do want people to know that if you were a white woman, and here's what's funny, if you were a white woman involved with a black man, you were treated very badly. But my cousin, who was a white man involved with several different black women, he was never treated that way. Never.
Funny, isn't it?
It is. It's that double standard. It's okay for him, but not so much for you.
So they're
And
also sexist.
absolutely, there were times where I remember my cousin would be out there, and there was this one county cop that used to high five him all the time.
Well,
About
go ahead.
the black women that he would be with. Man, she's pretty, she's hot, and he'd high five him. But
My
then he
opinion
would
on
turn
that.
on me.
My opinion on that is the black woman was good enough to have sex with. They were good enough for their pleasure. But the black men taking their women, that
Was a
was
disgrace.
a challenge. You're challenging me. I am better than you,
Yep.
and you're challenging me. How dare
Exactly.
you?
Exactly. And they felt as though that it brought. In fact, it was said to me that I was bringing disgrace, that I was disgracing my family, that I was bringing shame to my family for what I was doing.
Mm.
And I just stood there. I didn't even know how to respond. And I was a mousy little twit. And when that was said to me, it literally rendered me speechless. I was like, what do you even say to that?
Yeah.
And I was one to quickly throw out, you sorry MFs and shut your MF mouth. And I was quick to throw that out. But never once did I respond that way when that was said to me, because I was so taken aback by the words. And there was a different feeling. There was a different, how do I put it? There was a different vibe to those words when it was said to me, because I was like, how is that even possible? Disgracing my family would be much more than what I'm doing.
Right.
You know, you can pick your friends, but you cannot pick your family.
Yep.
And in this case, I was able to pick my family, and
Mm.
they love me. Even today, I can still pick up the phone and call any one of them and say, "Hey, how y'all doing? Everything doing okay?
Right.
Y'all got everything you need?" You know, I can still, and they know they call me the same. You know, just the same. Um, I still talk to Ron, and I still talk to his brothers, and I still talk to his cousin. You know, me and Yolanda still talk all the time. You know, we don't agree on a lot of things, but we love each other just the same.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and we tell each other that constantly. Hey, we don't see eye to eye, but you know what? I love you. I love you too, girl. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, that's the way it is. That's what family is.
Yeah.
You don't
Indeed.
always agree,
Very true.
but you know, I was fortunate. I was very fortunate, and I still look at it that way to this day. Um, I got to see both sides of the fence, and I got to see how families treat each other on both sides of the fence, and the love and the the closeness that I felt with the Reed family and with the Moore family was unbelievable. There is no comparison to that. When Joe and Mama walked into that room, because like I said, I was a lippy little girl,
Mm-hmm.
and I smarted off to her, and she come into that room and she said, "What did you say to me?" And my dummy self turned around to repeat it.
Repeat it. Mm.
She slapped the taste clean out my mouth.
Mm.
And you know something? I'll love her even more for it. Because
Yeah.
her doing that showed me, you're my grandbaby and you will not talk to me that way.
There you go.
And she didn't have to treat me that way. None of them had to treat me like family, but they all did. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But and the unfortunate thing is the reality of what was going on in Bastrop made it to seem not okay.
Did
And
you ever?
that's what.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Finish your statement. Let me. I'll ask you when you finish.
That's what hurt me the most was the fact that no one around me could see the reality of what was happening
Mm.
on the outside.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you. Did you ever meet? Um. Oh shoot! Now his name slips me. Stacy's boyfriend. Stacy's fiance.
Jimmy?
Jimmy
Jimmy Fennell?
Fennell.
No.
His name was on the tip of my
I
tongue until I
never,
stopped. Okay.
I never, no.
Okay.
I do know that he was a police officer in Giddings at the time.
Right.
And I steered clear of Giddings because if you think Bastrop was bad,
Giddings
you
was
should have went
worse?
to Giddings. Giddings was worse.
Wow.
So when we would go, when Ron and I would drive to Brenham, we would have to drive through Giddings. We never got off the highway. We would not get off the highway. I don't care if our car was busted, smoking, got flames shooting out the hood. We would not stop. We would have kept on going until we could go no further. We would not get off the highway and go into Giddings. Giddings was worse than Bastrop.
Which puts things even more into perspective.
Yeah. Well, the little towns, they were able to get away with stuff like that because they didn't have Big Brother watching every move that they made. You know,
Right.
it wasn't something that that was recognized by the big cities. Now that Bastrop has grown as much as it has, I'm sure that it is hidden better. But I
it's
am
not gone.
almost 100%. No, and it'll never be gone. It'll never be gone as long as you have those old, 60, 70, 80-year-old people sitting up there in the judge's seat and won't get out.
Mm.
I retired because I don't feel right in my mind. Well, you should have retired before you made the decision you made 30 years ago, bro. Because you wasn't right in your mind then either.
Right.
But I mean, that's just and it's unfortunate, and I hate that this happened. Because I'm going to tell you, Rodney, I don't believe that Rodney was in love with Stacy, but I know he cared about her. I know he cared tremendously about her because he could see what was going on, and he would talk to her, constantly talk to her about how she just needed to leave the situation and get out of the situation that she was in, and that he would help her. And she was afraid. She was afraid to leave it, and he knew that. I mean, he was a cop, and cops find you.
Right.
It doesn't matter where you go; they're going to find you.
Yeah.
There's always somebody there to tell something, So, but I believe that he cared for her deeply, and I believe that if things would have went differently, I believe Rodney would have helped her get out of that situation. They try to paint this picture of how happy she was in this relationship with Jimmy. And if you look at the truth and you look at the things that Mama said, and you look at the things that her sister said, she wasn't happy.
Yeah.
She wasn't looking forward to this. I mean, I can't say this for a fact because I never spoke to her about this. I can only tell you what I have read in their own handwriting.
Mm-hmm. And there's a little bit of what you've seen. You saw a little bit of it too. With her, with Rodney.
Very, very little.
It's a little bit,
just
but
very,
but there,
very little, yeah.
sometimes you see a little bit and it tells you a lot.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. But one of the things that just devastates me the most is the fact that there are a lot of things that people are capable of. People are capable of doing many devious, horrible things. But when it comes down to the reality of the situation, how many people are actually able to commit such a heinous crime? And if you look at the facts, and you look at the facts that, first of all, nothing of Rodney's was found in that truck. No fingerprints, no DNA, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Rodney was what, 19? No, he was older than that. She was 19. He was in his 20s. He was in his mid-20s. Mid to late. I keep forgetting he's older than Ron sometimes.
Yeah, because I think he's 51 now, I believe.
Yeah, and Ron is, I think Ron is 50.
Yeah,
No, Ron will be 51 this year.
Okay.
So, and Rodney's older than him by, I want to say, a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
So, when all of this came down, and he didn't, he wouldn't have known to cut her fingernails. Her fingernail, and I'm sorry, but an avid nail biter doesn't cut their fingernails.
Right. the nails don't get to grow for it to cut them.
No. So, he wouldn't have known to cut her fingernails to get rid of evidence. Then they said, oh, the saliva swab from the breast matched his DNA. Then come to find out that swab never got tested. That came from the written report, that it never got tested. Then it turned around and they stated it on the stand that it did. So which one is true, the written or the verbal? Because one was a lie.
Right.
You couldn't have tested it and not tested it. You either did or you didn't. You know. Then everybody's clinging to this, well, they found sperm. Well, they found 3 spermatozoa, 3 intact spermatozoa that can live. Research it yourself if you don't believe me. Up to 72 hours, which coincides with him stating that he had been with her, you know, the day or two prior to this happening.
Yep.
You know, I mean, so, and I'm sorry, but a man that is going to rape a woman and not use contraceptive when he does it is going to leave a lot more than 3 spermatozoa. Unless he's extremely abnormal.
How do you know? What kind of doctor are you?
I don't have to be a doctor. I have relations with my husband. I know these things. You know, so I mean, it's just common sense just isn't a flower that grows in people's garden anymore.
Nah.
And because of that, people they cling to what the media says. They cling to what this person. Oh, I like what that person says, so I'm going over there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but what if that person's lying? Oh, but I like what they said, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They said it nice.
Yeah,
they
it was
said
well
it in
presented.
A nice way. Yes, they had a pretty picture,
and they're
they gave it to
charismatic.
me, and exactly. You know, and that's what's sad is instead of basing your opinion on facts, you're basing your opinions on emotion, and that needs to stop. Because as long as people are basing their opinions on emotion, this man is going to continue to sit in prison for a crime he did not commit.
Yep.
So,
Joy,
I just...
I really want to thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I want to thank you for opening your platform so I can shed a little light. Hopefully this will...
You shed a whole sun. That's what you shed. You shed a whole sun.
Well, my name is Joy.
There you go. And
So,
I do hope this helps to bring some joy to the Reed family with helping Rodney to get home.
Well, Aunt Sandra knows that I love her, and I will be there for her anytime she needs me. Roderick knows I love him, and I'll be there, you know, as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And when Rodney says, I need you to come testify, I'll let you know I'm there.
Yep.
And I don't care if I got to pick bottles and cans and sell everything I own to be there, I'll be there.
Oh, believe me, I'm pretty sure that you won't have much problems getting there.
Well, I just hope this helps people to understand what kind of a community that this took place in,
right?
And why, you know, why so many people view it the way they do.
Yeah. Thank you, Joy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for opening your platform.
We'll talk.
All right. You have a blessed evening.
Thank you. You go get some rest. I know you have an early start tomorrow.
3 a.m. Bye-bye.
All right. You take care now.
You too.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joie Monfort. There's no way that I could have arranged this. All I could have done was open up my platform for her to tell her story. And her story of Bastrop, her story of Rodney Reed, her story of Angela being raped by James Slaughter. When you put all these pieces of her story together, doesn't it change the way you look at certain things, especially as it relates to the town of Bastrop and the Rodney Reed case? Doesn't it change things? And if it doesn't, you probably need to check it out again. This will be uploaded on kevinstew.com by morning, by sunrise, Eastern time. It will well be up there. As a matter of fact, within the next hour, it will be on kevinstew.com. You can go back and check it out. Make notes if you need to. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow. Healthy love. 10 p.m. till midnight. We went a little bit over tonight, but it was necessary. Y'all take care until we meet again. Be good. If you can't be good at it. But I'm out of here. Catch you later on Healthy Love. Blessings to you.
Pulse Media Group, innovative streaming and recording, has done it again. A new way to get your business in full view of your neighborhood consumer through AdShare TV. It's available in your neighborhood today. It's easy. Just call us 754-999-6020. Become a host today and place a TV monitor in a strategic location so it's easy to see. Get a 1-minute video ad or longer that plays anywhere in our network. Can't be a host? No problem. For a few dollars, we'll run your 30-second video ad. A host can run announcement specials like buy one get one free or discount ads. Let's turn your flyers into a 30-second video with music or a voiceover, or let us create and run your video ad with a spokesperson. Take advantage of our early enrollment discount. Join us today. Your ad will be seen at least 30 times per day in your AdShare TV neighborhood. It's easy. Just call us 754-999-6020. AdShare TV, part of Pulse Media Group.
Greetings and salutations, one and all. You're invited to tune in to the Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It airs on Mondays with Community and Finance, Tuesdays with Healthy Love, and Wednesdays with Real Talk from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Come spend some time interacting in the stew pot where we keep things bubbling and wind down in musical therapy. The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew is on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.